Hi everyone, welcome back to Keeping Up with the Chaldeans. I'm Anthony Toma, your host. Today I'm here with Lauren Wilson from, she's running actually for the Bloomfield Hills School Board. Welcome, thanks for coming. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, why you ran, and get into the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. So my name is Lauren Wilson. I am a mom of two girls. I live in Bloomfield Hills, and I'm looking to run for school board to affect some change, give parents a voice in our community, and address concerns that I have, and be part of the solution.
And what do you think the solution is?
So I think for me personally, I'm focused on curriculum transparency. I'm looking to understand what we're teaching in our schools and why. I'd like to be a pro-parent advocate, so giving parents a voice for what they believe is right for their child. And then I also want to advocate for the taxpayers. So as we give our tax dollars, I want to make sure that they are responsibly and transparently spent, and just provide answers when there's concerns or questions.
So you have a moral side and you have a business side of the entire school board and the everything that's going on in the schools. Why don't you talk a little bit about your drive and why you're actually doing this?
Sure. So my daughters are young. I'm just starting out. I have a second grader and a kindergartner, and through my experience, when my daughter was actually at the public school at Way Elementary, I just had my own experiences. It happened to be COVID. My other daughter was in private school simultaneously, so I actually saw the juxtaposition between the two experiences. My daughter, who was in public school, was doing virtual learning for upwards of 9 months, while my other daughter was going to school full time, 5 days a week. And of course, we were doing the best with what we had and what we knew at the time. But I think there could have been partnerships leveraged. Parents at that time even had concerns and had wants that weren't necessarily able to be expressed or considered at that time. And so I've really just been inspired and compelled to ensure that parents have those voices and concerns addressed, whether it be current, whether it's curriculum or the way our tax dollars are being leveraged. I think that parents and taxpayers have a real voice and have a real opportunity to become involved. But for me, I think that I want to make sure that students have the opportunity to go to school and get a really great education. I think that's an expectation that we as taxpayers and as Americans can really understand and get in line with. And I just want to make sure that if anything is taking time, resources, or dollars away from having children have that opportunity, I would just like to understand why and what the return would be for the kids, and ensuring that they have the best possible education. So Bloomfield Hills is one of the most well-funded districts in the entire state of Michigan. And we get over $20,000 per student.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a lot of money. We're the third highest in Oakland County per pupil. And I just want to make sure that, kids are getting the benefit that we as taxpayers are providing.
So it seems like the board and the board's focus has gone kind of sideways. What can a single individual like yourself do to help change that, or at least make sure that there's transparency there in the board as a single individual that's kind of battling the elements that's there now? Absolutely.
And that's a great question, because that's actually why I'm asking people who support my stance to only vote for me. The reason is because I am the one candidate out of the current 10 that are running that had this perspective. And if it weren't for me running in this group, the people that have my perspective would not be represented. And
Right.
So I believe that I believe in equality. That is different than equity.
Yeah.
Equality means to me that everybody has the opportunity to be successful, to be great. They all have access to resources. Equity in turn means ending up at the same result. So I believe that if you work hard, you're honest, you're diligent, you put the effort and work in, you can go be and do anything you want in the world. And that to me is what every child deserves. It doesn't matter your your race, your creed, your color, your religion, your background, where you came from. Like, everybody should have that opportunity, and that's what I want to protect. And so we had a candidate panel with the Women League of Voters at Bloomfield Hills, and we were asked that very question, and I was the only person on that candidate panel to say, I believe in equality. And so I think that if you believe in equality, I would be your voice in a closed door room with the other board members to ensure that you have a voice. I've been endorsed by individuals and groups, and I'm very much in line with the people that have chosen to endorse me so generously. And I am not afraid to explain why I'm endorsed by them. For example, I am endorsed by a group that believes in medical freedom, and I believe that. I applied to be endorsed by them, and so I'm not intimidated to say that, and I'm not...
Explain medical freedom.
So medical freedom meaning, you choose what you want to put in your body. If that's a vaccine, it's your choice.
Sure.
If you want to wear a mask, that's your choice. But I don't believe in mandates. I don't believe, and I would not support a mandate on children. Oftentimes that's been the mental gymnastics of the CDC and the health department, for example, that we've all experienced was, the CDC will recommend, but then the Oakland County Health Department will say, well, we're going on the recommendation,
Right.
So it's kind of like this buck never stops, and I want it to stop.
Yeah, so with that cycle of finger pointing and blame throwing, how do we come to and this is probably a question that can't be answered because if we would have had the answer by now, but how do we do something about that to where they can't just keep pointing the finger and saying, oh, we're just doing this, and then we're just going to go contact this person or contact this agency or whatever. So what can be done to help alleviate some of that confusion?
So one of the most recent directives of the Oakland County Health Department was that some of these choices were going to come right back down to the board, to the local level school boards. And so that's why it's so important for people in our neighborhoods to get involved and become educated about who we're putting in these seats and what they would plan to do behind a closed door. So I think it's very important that people watch what people say, but most importantly, what people do. So there are candidates running who are all about, those, they think it's for safety, and maybe so, maybe for some people, but I believe and I would advocate for having that being an individual right.
Sure, absolutely. So you touched a little bit on just voting for you. So get a little deeper into the explanation of why and how the entire voting process goes and the tabulations, just so people understand why you're asking them to just vote for you only.
So if you believe in what my platform is, so curriculum transparency, if you are looking to have someone secured on the board as a pro-parent advocate and someone who is looking to protect taxpayer dollars expenditure through transparency and authenticity, then I'm asking them to only vote for me because I'm the only person who stands by those pillars. And when you only vote for one person, so this election's a little different in that you can vote up to 4 people. The difference here is that it's not a one or the other, it's one of potentially 4. So you can vote up to 4, but when you don't vote for 4, you actually concentrate your vote. And so by you voting for just me and not for others, you're actually elevating the vote that you did provide. And so it kind of, it gives a vote, but then it also takes away a vote essentially from others.
Right, so it's just a run to the total.
Yes.
So yeah.
So these positions will be given, elected based on the sheer number of votes. And so if you're not providing a vote to an additional person, then they're not getting your vote.
Right.
So
can you talk about the state of what's going on in Bloomfield Hills now, and then you mentioned a little bit about the comparison to Birmingham, Bloomfield, and just kind of give a little parallel explanation of what's happening there.
Sure. So in the past 2 years since COVID, Bloomfield Hills School District has seen a decline in over 200 students. And so they've either chosen other options, whether it's homeschooling, private schools, or a different avenue. Potentially some have left the area entirely. But either way, I think, and I'm an example of this, of people picking up and leaving the district for a better opportunity elsewhere, where they can have trust. I personally am a working mother, and so a lot of that decision had to do with me being able to have predictability with my work schedule and understanding that my child would be in school full time. But you know, it's important, and it's such a basic opportunity here in America. I mean, we have a public school system. If you want to use the public school system like my husband and I fully intended when we bought in Bloomfield Hills 5.5 years ago, you should be able to do that. And you shouldn't have to navigate all these, you know, conjectures that others are putting into what the public school system is at this point. I think that every child and every parent, frankly, should want their kid in the public schools. I mean, we have really great resources. We have resources for kids that the private schools don't or can't provide simply because they don't have them. And, you know, part of that is with the declining enrollment, you know, we're seeing a lot of expenditure on buildings, for example, expanding buildings at our local elementary school. They're building a gymnasium, which is great because they didn't have one, but they're also building additional classrooms. So I guess I would ask, you know, we're seeing all this construction and expansion with declining enrollment, and what are we doing to get those kids back into the district? I don't believe it's a lost cause. I think that we can really appeal to the families and the parents and people that are coming into our neighborhood to say, hey, leverage us for your child's education, and we'll make it worth it. So that's one thing, but that goes right into your question about Birmingham and Birmingham's budget being off balance. You know, last year, Bloomfield Hills was overspent by $3 million. That's unacceptable. You know, you don't get to overspend and then come tap the taxpayers on the shoulder and say, hey, we're gonna put 2 millages to increase your taxes because we have overspent. You know, I would ask, how do we allocate funds, and in what order? Are we taking care of the necessary maintenance, for example, first, that we know is going to need to be done, and then are we layering on additional expenses, or are we doing those additional expenses and then saying, oh, hey, by the way, we also have these needs for maintenance, for the roof, for the AC, or whatever it may be. So it's unacceptable to overspend by $3 million.
Right.
You cannot keep asking the taxpayers. My personal taxes have gone up 30% in the past 5 years.
Wow.
And I'm not, you know, I'm happy to pay my taxes. I support the public schools, but I would like to see some accountability.
So what accountability is there right now?
So the board actually hires the superintendent, and the superintendent hires the administration, and the board answers to the taxpayers. That's how it's supposed to be structured.
Yes, they're supposed to answer to the taxpayer.
So me having this conversation with our community right now is I'm asking for you guys to hire me onto the board, and to trust me to go in there and advocate for certain positions that behind a closed door, I'm not afraid to do that. I am not afraid to be a solo flyer. I know that, you know, it will be an uphill battle and the real work will start once I take the position. But I'm not afraid of that. And I think the accountability absolutely needs to come down from the taxpayers to the board and then ultimately to the superintendent. So for example, Bloomfield Hills High School is ranked number 49 in the state. Not great.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and not too long ago we were in the top 10.
Well, what is ranking based on?
So it's ranked on test scores and proficiency levels. So it has to do with AP classes and things like that. It also has some nuances with AP courses and the exams having actually been taken. But we should be better.
Yeah.
We are behind every other local adjacent district. I mean, 48 other districts. And
So these aren't schools out in like Traverse City or anything like that. We're talking like there are schools ahead of us, 48 other school districts ahead of us in the local region.
So it is based on the state. So that is a state ranking.
Yep.
It's out of the U.S. News, which is the organization that actually puts these rankings out. So it is qualified. Mm-hmm. But it is a state ranking, so it does include, maybe Ann Arbor location is out there, but
sure.
I mean, Bloomfield Hills is behind both Rochester's, both Birmingham's, Troy schools, and we should be running right in line with that pack, if not leading that pack with the resources and the funding that we have. So, for example, when you ask about accountability, 79% of our high schoolers are ranking as proficient in reading. 79%. So essentially 1 in 5 students at the Bloomfield Hills High School is not reading proficiently. 61% proficient in math. So
wow, those
with a ranking,
startling numbers.
Yeah, it's really disappointing, and it's not the way it has or should be. Mm-hmm. But when you ask about accountability and who's being held accountable, ultimately the superintendent should be held accountable to that.
Who's the superintendent?
So our superintendent's name is Pat Watson. Mm-hmm. He's been there for a few years. And I'm not sure that Pat Watson isn't necessarily part of the solution. However, our board gave him a 4 out of 4 per current board member's communication on his annual ranking, and I would question that. Mm-hmm. Unanimously gave him a 4 out of 4. That's not 4 out of 4 work, in my opinion. In my experience, in my business, in my work history, if I put those numbers up as a student or as a business professional, I certainly wouldn't be considered exceeding expectations.
You're right. Where were the numbers before? You said his name's Pat? Mm-hmm. Where were the numbers before or if you know? So
I don't know specifically, but I can tell you a tangible example of the direction that the district has gone. So for example, 3rd grade reading is a huge measurement. Okay, 3rd grade reading is when children go from reading or learning to read to reading to learn. Mm-hmm. So this is a big transition for kids in the way that they are taught and expected to continue to obtain information.
Yeah.
Currently in Bloomfield Hills, 25% of our 3rd graders are not reading proficiently.
It's a lot.
That's an improvement pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, the number was actually 31%. Okay, not reading proficiently in 3rd grade. That number was as high as 36%. 2 or 3 years prior to that.
Okay.
So 31% not reading proficiently. The children went home when they were in COVID. The number actually improved. There was a 9-point delta improvement when the kids were at home. So the number went from 31% not reading well to 22% not proficient. I would have to, again, ask why. Like, why is that? Is that because the parents were at home reading, we were all cooped up, and we really drilled in and spent a ton of time and worked? And now that they're back in school, the number has increased. So it went from 31 pre-COVID, at home, 22%, back in school, now we're back up to 25. So we're seeing that number creep back up with kids not proficient. I would like to see that number not continue to grow. We need really intensive curriculum assessment on the reading level at kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and 3rd grade to see what do we need to do or implement. Is it an intensive phonics curriculum to introduce and ensure that kids are coming and into and leaving 3rd grade, making that transition effectively?
Right. What about these teachers unions? What do you make of them?
So I would caution everyone to really look into the MEA endorsement. So the Michigan Education Association, it's a derivative of the NEA, which is the national organization level. The MEA is a teachers union that's focused on, you know, a lot of things, but one of those things is the social justices and social justice initiatives. And, you know, again, it goes back to what are we teaching our children and what's important. When those kids have a couple hours in the school building a day, are we ensuring that they're learning how to read, write, and do math? Or are we focused on social justice programs?
Right.
So the MEA has endorsed 4 candidates for the Bloomfield Hills School Board. More power to them. That's not me.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have no interest in that organization or being a part of that work in terms of the social justice programs. I want to make sure that your tax dollars, my tax dollars that we go to work for every day are intended to really ensure that kids have an honest opportunity to go through school, get a fabulous education, and then post-graduation have an opportunity to become self-sufficient adults and be contributing to society. And if they want to go to college, great. College isn't necessarily for everyone in my belief.
Right.
I believe in the trades. I believe that, you know, maybe that's something that we could explore as a high school and ensuring that children who don't choose college, and that's okay. I think there's really successful people who run trades that, you know, feed a lot of families. And, you know, I think we just need opportunity to ensure that kids, you know, we're not confusing them. We're not standing in their way. We're not putting things in their minds when they're not old enough to understand or comprehend or make sense of what those issues are or what they mean. I just think that we need to do our best for them so that they can come out and be really great, because they'll ultimately be our future leaders, their future voters. They're going to have their families, and I want to ensure that they can provide for theirs and when they get there.
For sure. So there are 10 seats total?
So there's 10 candidates for 4 seats.
So how many seats are total? Like
7.
how many on the board?
7.
7. So
Yeah.
there's only going to be 3 current.
Correct.
And then 4 new. Who are these 3 current, and then how long are these terms?
So the terms are 4 years. You do have 1 incumbent running for re-election. 3 have chosen to not run. I'm not sure why, but that's neither here nor there. And so you do have people existing on the board who I'm not sure that there's huge alliances, I'll say, you know, with
between the 3?
Yeah, with the existing board as a whole right now. There seems to be some tension and not really.
Who on the board is closest aligned, if at all, with your views currently?
No one.
No one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no one closely aligned to my views currently running either.
Okay.
But that's okay. That's okay. The encouraging part of having this opportunity to even run for this position is that I represent people in our community that do believe what I believe and do think the way that I think, and value the same initiatives and goals. And I want to make sure that even if I'm a lone voice in a room, that you have a voice at all.
Yeah.
Because right now, I can assure you that I don't have a voice in there. My perception and my beliefs are not represented in that room right now.
Right.
And if I'm not elected, I can again be confident that my beliefs and my values are not represented. So that's why I'm asking for people that do believe what I believe to simply vote for me, so that we can ensure that I'm in there and I can push for these things and question the things that are also coming down the pike. For example, Bloomfield Hills High School will be hosting a Transgender Awareness Week this month. That was voted unanimously by the existing board last year to implement. Now, again, is that something that you support? Maybe, maybe not. But why? You know,
Yeah,
why are we having that? I guess I would just like to understand more. And how is that ensuring that our kids are getting the right tools, time, and resources to learn
Right.
how to read and write when we're demonstrating on a school-wide scale that our proficiency levels are certainly in need of support.
Yeah, definitely. What have you learned through all this process?
You know, I have learned that when I thought I had an unpopular opinion or view, I actually have had people really come out of the woodwork and rally around me.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but why are people scared to boast about their conservative views? And even if it's not, they're not, very, very conservative, but just to why should people be, or why are they afraid to just speak out what they're thinking? What's the fear there? Because I know you mentioned you're not afraid. Yeah. You mentioned it a couple times. So just kind of where do you derive that courage from, and how can other people just do it themselves too?
So I kind of ripped the Band-Aid off my own life, and I used to work for Apple Incorporated, which is the most recognized company in the entire world, time and time again. And that was a lot of why I would inhibit my thought and my feeling, was because my job, my financial security, my retirement plan, my reputation, could have really been impacted.
Yeah.
Or that's what I was made to believe and think. And I let that go. I started to see what they're doing in schools coming into my own work, and my own performance at work in a professional environment was being held to account based on my participation in these same initiatives that they are doing to children in schools. And I wasn't willing to participate. And so this isn't for everybody, but for me personally, I walked away.
Yeah.
I walked away from a lot of security. I walked away from what I
Financial
had known.
security.
Yeah, financial security,
Yeah.
my plan, my long-term plan. And it just wasn't worth it to me. I'm a Christian, and I will always guide my life by what I know is right in that capacity. And to me, that's so important, and it wasn't worth the financial part to me. And so I gave it up.
Yeah.
But I think that is a big fear. And I think when you talk about a cancel culture or people coming after people's jobs, I mean, I've been smeared, in our community by people who are fully aware that I have small children, that I, like everyone else, has a mortgage to pay. And sometimes they're not so nice, but I get my strength from God, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say that. And I've also been smeared for that.
Yeah.
But I'm secure in that, and I'm protected, so I'm good.
Well, God's undefeated. I don't know if
every time.
our viewers know that or
Yeah.
not, but God is undefeated.
Yep.
What else do you want to kind of talk about, or do you have people that you want to thank through that helped you throughout this process, that you just want to shout out and give them recognition on this little show?
Absolutely. So I would love to thank my hype girl, Erica Kais. She's been my right hand and really helping me get out there. And I've just had really great support from Amber Harris and some others, in the local community that have just really come out to get to know me and support my cause, and giving their time, whether it's a Saturday morning or writing postcards to friends to say, their support of me and encouraging them to get to know what I stand for. But again, I would appreciate to earn anyone's vote in our community, and I would just really appreciate that as support. I think that I've been really fortunate and blessed to come into this and received more than I would have ever imagined or anticipated, and I just want to do what's right.
And I'm sure you want to thank the hubby and the kids
Oh, yeah.
sacrifice that they're
Yes.
lending mom to
I
the
forgot, my own husband. Yes, my husband. It's been a full family effort, I will
Yeah.
tell you. Like, I go to work, and then after work I go to this job and I do this work, and so my husband has really, really stepped up to the plate and just been
That's
like
awesome.
full on like dad mode, which, you know, picking our kids up from school and feeding and dinner and baths and swimming and everything. So he's just been really
That's
great.
great.
Yeah.
So how can people get out there and vote? Are there different ways? I know there's elections are weird these days.
Yeah.
So how can they? When can they? And
Yeah, so you can vote November 8th, which
Mhm.
is Tuesday. If you don't have an absentee ballot already, you'll want to make sure you show up to the poll in person. I would always encourage that. Make sure your vote's counted. And yeah, I mean, again, you'll have the chance to pick up to 4 out of 10, but I would really ask that you really consider only voting for me. If you can check me out on Lauren Wilson, the number 4, schoolboard.com.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, so that's the web. That's
That's
what about social?
Yep, so I'm on Facebook too, but
Okay.
I'm not
Not very
typically
active.
one to go on Facebook. I do have a Facebook account, Lauren
Mhm.
Wilson.
Mhm.
And you'll see that I am who I am.
Yeah.
And that's it.
What does the ballot look like for those that are going to be new to kind of the voting in the local, I guess, for the local
Yeah.
candidate?
Yeah, so this is a big ballot. So we
Mhm.
have the governor, we have the attorney general, secretary of state. So those are all going to be on the front side, upper left-hand corner. The school board race will be on the back side, bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, okay.
It's about as far as
Yeah.
entry as you get.
Okay.
But that's where it starts. And we
Yeah.
need people to be involved and understand, and everybody has a voice. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you have children that are now, parents of grandchildren, whatever. It's everybody has a voice. And so even if you don't have kids in the school and your kids are in private, you matter.
Yeah.
If you never had children, you matter.
Yeah.
Some people would have you think that you don't. That's
Right.
not true. You have a voice. You pay taxes. You count.
Right.
Yeah.
So get out and vote.
Please get out and
Yeah.
vote. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. I look forward to greeting you as the Bloomfield Hills School Board chair. Well, let's make you the chair.
Yeah.
Why
Let's
not?
do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.